I can probably say I've done a half a dozen cases where somebody has touched a power line. And I'm going to classify power lines. Obviously, you got the high voltage lines like 115 kV up on the big poles with the great big long insulators. Tells you the length of the insulator gives you a pretty good idea of whether you're higher voltage or lower. Then your standard power lines that you see your distribution lines going to your houses, typically 2 or 3 lines on it, and they're lowered to the ground. They have transformers. Essentially, if you look at your typical system on your distribution system, anything above the transformer is high voltage. Anything below the transformer is low voltage. I say low voltage, 480, 240, 110 voltage, but below the transformer. Anything above that is high voltage. In this case, they were, I have to steal a truck here. Whoops, I didn't set the brake. They were putting in guardrail posts. This is Wachella Falls, Highway 84, milepost 40, Bonneville Dam, the Wachella Falls trailhead in the park. They're putting in new guardrails. So they've got this guardrail punching machine. This one doesn't look exactly like the one in the picture, but you get the idea, if I can make it work. Okay. First of all, I just got to get this thing to line up. Okay. This sits on a flatbed trailer. And you got a couple of critters here. It turns on a pivot. So they can come along here, and the first thing they've got is this drill thing. And it goes down. See my cute little drill? Oh, it goes down and it drills holes in the ground. And when they get done drilling, they pull it up, and then this next one moves up to that hole, and it comes up, and it takes the posts themselves, and there's a slot in the side, it puts them in, and then there's a hammer that comes down, and it hammers the post in the ground, and then they pour rock or concrete or whatever around it. Make sense? Okay, now these things are like 2 foot, 4 inches apart, these posts. If you look at a guardrail on a corner, they're pretty close to each other. And that's what this machine is doing, and you can see the posts as it's getting up to the machine. They've put in a bunch of posts, and they're moving along here, and they get closer and closer and closer. There's a power line. Actually, in this case, there was only one line, right? And it went across the road, and it seemingly went nowhere. It just went out across the end of the brush and disappeared. Like, what? One line. They keep going along here, and they can see the line. It's clearly visible right above the truck. And they're moving along, and now, do you know what happens? You've got a ground guy. He's the foreman. You've got the operator sitting here in the operator's compartment of the machine. Now, he's an operator. He just operates the machine, makes it work. The ground guy is the foreman. Now, if you can't poke the hole in the ground with the machine because of power lines or whatever it is, the alternative is a shovel, hand digging the hole. So he's continually watching the power lines as he gets up here. And he gets up here and, let's see. Oh, there's 2 lines, I'm sorry. He gets up there, he puts one in back far enough away, then he gets between the 2 lines, and he's pounding another one in. Now, as this thing pounds, it wiggles. And this thing's like, the back of it's like 2 inches from the power line. And as it wiggled, it hit the power line. And it started raining down arc flash and melting metal and enough to scare this guy and burn him. He jumped off the machine, and when he did, the ground gradients, from the power going into the ground, he was killed as soon as he jumped off the machine. Now, you know, how far is safe from a power line? This wound up being a 4,000 volt line. Not the 7,200 typical that you see these days. A 4,000 volt line, which was kind of the old style system. It came right off of the dam, and it went nowhere, but it was energized. And the rule is 10 feet from power line, minimum, depending on the voltage. If you get up around these 115 kV lines, you got to be 10 feet plus 1/4 inch for every 1,000 volts over 50,000 volts, or whatever the rules say. But at minimum, on these 7,200 or low voltage 4,000 volt line, it's 10 feet. And that's from the center of that power line, 10-foot radius all the way around, no matter what. Where your boom or whatever it is, you got to stay 10 feet away. So I'm asking the guy, the foreman, I'm like, okay, what are the rules? Well, it's 10 feet. I know the rules. I'm trained in the rules. It's 10 feet, okay. I don't know how we got that close. Well, if I go back and I look in the ground where you put those posts, leading up to this incident, there's a post, there's 1, 2, 3 posts that you had to put in with that equipment within 10 feet before you got to the one where the accident occurred. Does that make sense? And you knew the line was there. You told me you knew the line was there. You know what that is? That's a willful violation in which somebody lost their life. You can go to jail for that. It didn't happen in this case, but you got to live with it. Luke's family has to live with it. And the company received a $70,000 violation for willfully violating the safety standard.